Hi, this is Dan, and this is another of my videos about Hartford, Connecticut. This one is about the northeast corner of Trumbull and Asylum Streets downtown. Today, there's a classic Italianate-style brownstone building on the corner here. It was erected in 1861 for the Charter Oak Bank. Before I talk about this building, I want to mention what was here before on this corner. Just 2 decades before the bank was erected, a very different structure stood here. On June 4th, 1840, a log cabin was erected on this corner in honor of William Henry Harrison, who was the Whig candidate for President of the United States. Many such log cabins were being built around the country as political headquarters for Harrison's Log Cabin and Hard Cider campaign, which portrayed him as a man of the common people in comparison to his opponent, Martin Van Buren, who was presented as a snobbish aristocrat. In reality, though, it was Harrison who came from a prominent and wealthy family, and Van Buren, who was from much humbler origins. The slogans worked, however, and Harrison was elected president, but he died of pneumonia only a month after taking office. Within a few years, a church would be built on this corner by Hartford's first Unitarian Society. Dedicated on April 22, 1846, the Gothic Revival-style Unitarian Church of the Savior was designed by architect Menard Lefebvre. Sadly, the expense of constructing the impressive Gothic Revival-style church proved to be a burden for the congregation, which ended up suspending services in 1857. They would not hold regular services again for another 20 years. The society would eventually move to other churches. It built one on Pratt Street in 1881, on Pearl Street in 1924, and its current home is the Unitarian Meeting House on Bloomfield Avenue, built in the early 1960s. As for their original church building of 1846, it was moved westward to Sigourney Street in the Asylum Hill neighborhood, where it became Trinity Episcopal Church. It's depicted on the right in a section from the 1864 bird's eye view of Hartford at its new location on Sigourney Street. It would remain there until it was replaced by a new Trinity Church in 1892. Back at the corner of Trumbull and Asylum, as I mentioned, the Brownstone building was erected in 1861 for the Charter Oak Bank. The bank occupied part of the building, with the rest of the space being rented out for other offices and shops. The building is in the Italianate style and originally had columns along the ground floor. Above the ground floor are 3 floors lined with windows, each floor having differently designed moldings around its windows. At the roofline is an Italianate-style bracketed cornice. In 1915, another bank took over the building, the City Bank and Trust Company. The bank hired Don Barber, architect of Travelers Tower, to design alterations to the building, which included a new entrance and large windows along part of the ground floor. The ground floor on the east half of the Trumbull Street side of the building had long been home to the One Price Clothing Company, which added a modern cast-iron front to its store in 1903. In 1912, the store expanded to the second floor and added plate glass windows. These were later removed, and this section's original appearance with Italianate window moldings was restored to match the rest of the building. As for the City Bank and Trust, it underwent a major remodeling and had a grand reopening in 1929, less than 6 months before the famous stock market crash. The bank did not survive the onset of the Great Depression, going into receivership in 1932. Soon, a restaurant called the Capitol Grill opened on the corner and would remain here until 1976. After the Capitol Grill moved out, the building was remodeled in 1976 for a new restaurant called the Brownstone, which remained here for a little over a decade. In recent years, the building has continued the tradition of having a variety of businesses, including a bank branch and a restaurant. The Brownstone building survives today as one of the few remaining examples of the style of commercial architecture that was very common in the city well over a century ago. Another, less elaborately decorated example of this style is the Putnam Building on Central Row, built around the same time. Today, the rest of the block on the north side of Asylum Street east of the Brownstone building is a parking lot, but it was once lined with 19th century buildings. In fact, just 40 years ago, there were still 3 buildings on Asylum Street east of the Brownstone building that were all also erected in about the year 1860. In an upcoming video, I'm going to talk about these buildings and the rest of the structures that stood on the north side of Asylum Street between Trumbull and Main Streets, so stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed this video, please consider purchasing one of my books, A Guide to Historic Hartford, Connecticut, and Vanished Downtown Hartford. I would also greatly appreciate it if you would hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel. And if you have any memories about the Brownstone building, please feel free to leave a comment, and I thank you for watching.